Good morning and welcome to today's Moss Adams webcast, Transform Your Approach to Project Revenue Planning. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. Moss Adams webcasts are designed to help elevate your business performance. Transform your future for the better with advisory solutions tailored to your vision and supported by our collective technical resources. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. As a reminder, the presentation you're about to see is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
I'm pleased to introduce today's presenters, Kristi Armijo, Senior Manager, and Brian Favorat, Senior Manager. Kristi manages cloud-based corporate performance management and business intelligence platforms. She implements CPM solutions that enable businesses to gain enhanced analytics and business insights by streamlining financial planning and analysis processes, automating data collection and consolidation, and providing real-time visibility into key performance metrics. Brian has experience selecting, maintaining, and deploying financial system solutions and provides management consulting services to public, private, and not-for-profit clients. He implements corporate performance management solutions that allow for enhanced analytics and business insights. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kristi to get us started.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Here's the topic at hand. We'll be discussing transforming your approach to project revenue planning with a value-based approach. And so we're going to kick it off today with some polling questions. So when you're planning revenue by project, you probably face several obstacles that can complicate the process. So what gets in the way? Is it data accuracy? Is your data inconsistent or inaccurate? Does the problem stem from a manual process? Outdated information or discrepancies between different data sources? Are your spreadsheets complicated and hard to consolidate? Is poor communication within the team leading to misunderstandings about the project that can impact the revenue plan? Or is there simply not enough time in the day to do it right? Or is this list too long to even count? So Brian, I'm kind of interested to see what you see in the marketplace as some obstacles.
Yeah, this is the, usually makes up the bulk work of when we begin talking to people about what's going on in their planning environment, where they're at. These types of issues often matriculate in various areas, and it might be in part of the planning, it might be in the entire planning experience, but within these areas, they are somewhat common, and really it's trying to figure out how we can mitigate them, reduce them, and sometimes we can eliminate them. But curious to know what looks like the group has going on here, and I think we're getting closer to the end of our submission here, so I'm curious, or I'm sure everybody else here is curious to know what's going on out there in the environment, because that's often what we also get asked is like, what are the problems that everybody else is dealing with? So I think these are kind of fun to kick off with to get started to address the challenges out there. So I think we are probably reaching the end of our submission here. I'll give everybody another couple of seconds, and then we'll have the big reveal. All right, I think we can turn it over there. All right, well, not too far off from the count. So right there, all the above plus the list is to count 42.6%. So as I had mentioned, that is not too uncommon. And given our our sample population here, I'm sure that what's described here certainly resonates with a lot of people. So good news, you're in the right place today to have this conversation with us. Back to you, Kristi.
All right. So with that being said, there are several ways to improve accuracy, efficiency, and insight to essentially effectively transform your approach to project planning. So what if you can integrate multiple data sources into one location, allowing you to have access to accurate data in real time that will drive the budgeting and forecasting process? Let's talk about having the ability to create a planning model that allows you to plan by project, where you and the team can collaborate without having to consolidate multiple spreadsheets. In this world, you can involve key stakeholders in the planning process to ensure alignment and accountability throughout the planning cycle, while having a solution where you can train your team and allowing them to be actively involved in the planning cycle. Doing so will increase your efficiency and ensure data accuracy and collaboration within the team. You can develop custom dashboards or reports that will provide you insights into the project revenue performance by monitoring like key metrics, let's say like actuals or versus forecasted revenue, project profitability, and variance analysis. These tools are crucial when we're really kind of taking a step back and just being able to analyze the data. So by following these steps, you can transform your approach to the project revenue plan while making your process more dynamic and insightful for your business objectives. So we got another polling question, because we want to take a second just to consider what you think are key factors to successfully planning project revenue. Is it data accuracy, more collaboration within your organization? How about the ability to have less spreadsheets that never seem to come back in the same format, and then you actually have the tall order of having to take all these spreadsheets that have been updated and try to consolidate them in a timely manner? Would having access to data where you can easily run a dashboard or report? And I kind of like to joke, but can I have it all? And Brian, I'd love to kind of hear your opinion.
Yeah, so this is kind of addressing that, how do we go about it, right? So what are our issues, and then how do we think is best to go about it? Doesn't often take a management consultant to be able to point out stuff that oftentimes our clients might already know that they're if we could just make these one or two things better, that would really improve our overall process. And these are some of the common things that we do see out there. And having it all is certainly the challenge, but being able to go about it in a way that's conducive to the organization and relates back to not only best practices, but how the business process at your organization operates. So are we having trouble getting the data points, or are we having, maybe the data point issues have to do with collaboration. We're not having people in there in a timely fashion. Maybe the reason we have issues with collaboration is because we have spreadsheets that are everywhere and people aren't really quite sure where to go to do that. And if you can't put any of these things together, how are you going to produce dashboards and reporting that are quite meaningful? So as you can see, a lot of these things are often related together, but curious to know, in a sense, where everyone thinks that their kind of key pain point is, because oftentimes when you address that, that may alleviate the others. Back to you, Kristi.
All right, so kind of looking at this, collaboration is key. That's one of the higher one pieces. And then access to reporting and dashboard, we see that a lot of times within the market. So these challenges don't allow you to respond to the current state of the business. So whether everyone kind of has a different perspective on that, but there's a lot of overlap on those ones. So you're spending a significant amount of time with the data and less time making decisions, which does not let you be agile to the business. And the term agile emphasizes the importance of having the best available information to make informed decisions. Making decisions promptly that align with your core strategies and goals really depends on having access to the information. So the question most most commonly comes up with is, where is the data located? If you're using multiple spreadsheets, they can be on a shared drive, or it could be in an email that you're trying to recall. Just locating the information can be very time consuming, which takes away from the planning cycle itself. If it takes too long, people are going to be disengaged in the process. So what if you don't have a clear access to the variance between your plan data versus actuals? And when we talk about that, we are really kind of looking to say, if you can't do comparisons between the two, trying to be able to identify those trends and getting that analysis is really going to kind of jeopardize the forward-looking part of the planning process. So what we try to do is reduce some of that time consumption, to reduce some of the pressure of being agile, as well as putting the pressure on the team to quickly turn around results. So adding up these challenges, you might soon find yourself considering, is there a solution out there that can allow my team to create some standardization in the project planning while encouraging engagement with the team, reduction of spreadsheets, and just having access to data at your fingertips? And can that make us more efficient? And that's what I mean by being agile. So when you're looking at data, having a side-by-side comparison is very impactful, because you can ask the question, what is the trend? What did we expect, and what is actually happening now? Consider an isolated number, such as project spend. On its own, this number is not going to be very telling because it really lacks context. However, if you can compare it to like year-to-date actuals to year-to-date budgets, suddenly you're going to get some significant amount of meaning, because which will in turn help you in that decision-making process. So imagine having an automated system that can consolidate all this information, including your original plan, your expected outcomes in one place. This will allow you to make informed decisions swiftly. This brings us to the startling metric at the bottom of the page. 64% of the annual budgets are outdated within 4 to 6 months from when they're finalized. That takes a lot of time and effort just to go into developing these plans and maintaining the spreadsheets and coordinating with the budget managers. Much of this effort becomes obsolete in such a short amount of time. If you can centralize the system where you can update, the updates are straightforward, you're not left waiting for this information, and this will lead to a budget that can be locked down, and then another version that can be actively managed, so you can make those decisions and discuss in real-time occurrences. And staying ahead of that 64% is what I mean by being agile within the business. As many of you know, collecting and utilizing the right data to gain insights into the business is essential to making informed decisions. While the importance of this is widely recognized, the actual difference between what the desire to capture and utilize, there's a huge gap between the two, and being able to actually implement these processes. Many organizations have adopted a really siloed approach to data management, which is really evident in the fragmentation of these efforts it provides to the business. Consider this: 83% of CEOs want their organizations to be data-driven, while only 30% believe they are. So what happens when you move away from spreadsheets and adopt an automated system that integrates these entire organization into a comprehensive and continually updated plan? What is the full impact of this transition? In the current state, you might distribute individual spreadsheets, the team fills it out. They're often not considering the most current activities or discussion because they're not able to get it back in time into your planning process. With an automated system, you can initiate the process with a guiding decision, and each department contributes at the same time. This way, you'll gain a comprehensive view of the bottom line results in real time. This is really a shift that will allow you to have your budget and forecast together in one location, but you can also be able to update it throughout the year. Being data-driven doesn't mean that you need excessive details your fingertips, it means having a strategic plan that represents a business strategy available to the decision makers when needed. And if you're using spreadsheets, you're probably delaying or jeopardizing this process. Reflecting on the statistics where 83% of CEOs desire a more data-driven organization compared to 30% who believe they have achieved this. And this really highlights the gap between aspiration and reality. One of the key aspects of the work that Brian and I do is we implement Workday Adaptive Planning. Adaptive planning is a solution designed for business users to easily own and operate their own planning and forecasting processes without really needing a lot of technical skills or IT support. It focuses on empowering your business users and enabling them to engage in planning and conduct what-if scenarios, perform budget to actual reporting alongside summarizing key results. Now I'll pass it over to Brian for a demo of Adaptive.
All right, bear with me here one moment.
And
so let me know when that comes up on your side, Kristi.
There it comes up. All right, we're ready to go, Brian.
Perfect. All right, for this portion of the webinar, everyone, I'm going to run through a couple quick examples of project planning and in adaptive planning. And there are a variety of ways that project planning can be facilitated. For my first abbreviated example, I have a breakdown of some projects by region, customer, job type. With this type of planning, it's easy to manage projects, build in the time of the expected flows, and manage the completion of the projects. This could be applicable when project details are either hard to capture, flows are reasonably known or stable, or it may be unnecessary for forecasting to capture information beyond some of these key components. However, this type of planning may not capture for organizations who have more nimble planning needs. So for my next example here, I'm going to show an example of resource-based planning, project planning, where we have regions, we have projects, service lines, practices, market segments, clients, resources, different rates and hours associated with this. So there's a lot of industries that this type of planning could be applicable to. I've seen it in real estate, construction, professional services, and even not-for-profits, where we're trying to identify people with various workloads or tasks or things that need to be planned over time. And beyond that, we want this plan to really tie back to our overall corporate planning. So this is not simply just a project management tool in that you can put people's hours in and have that sort of stuff tied out, but it really ties back immediately to the overall financials of the institution. So we'll walk through a couple of examples of what that looks like. So on this sheet here, as I mentioned, you have a bunch of different components. Basically what it breaks down to is we're trying to get people aligned onto some projects here. So I have Project Alpha, Project Beta, Project Delta, Project Epsilon, and each of these might pertain to different service lines or different practices. And there could be different people that are responsible for these profit centers. So having a place where you can centralize this information and have it be updated by the relevant resource is very valuable. And then simply what's happening over here are the assigned hours are being applied to each of these individuals. So what's the net effect of this once we put this information in the system? Well, firstly, we can get some resource allocation done, because as we're building up our plan here, we're going to try to do our best to get everybody sorted out, put onto projects, hit their utilization hours, make sure that things are load balanced. And as Kristi had mentioned earlier, it really sort of acts as a communication tool, because it's hard to just plan in isolation without having all the information available to the team to have a discussion around, okay, where do we see things going here? So in my report example here, I have at the top of the screen some positions. What these really indicate are positions that are available in projects that haven't been filled yet. So effectively, these are unassigned. So this is a bit of a flag to the team saying like, hey, we have some work that we need to get assigned out to people. And then beneath that, I have some examples of people. So what I've done is use some of our historical presidents here, and I've assigned them all some different roles. So each of these roles could apply to projects in different ways, and maybe different hours or metrics could be associated with them. You have things like standard hours, PTO hours, non-charge hours, billable hours. We capture this information so that we can know, how available these people are, and then their utilization. Because oftentimes when we're doing project planning, especially if that's a primary source of revenue, we're really trying to capture how utilized are these resources and what are they utilized compared to maybe a benchmark that we have for them. So what I've done with this report is just a little bit of conditional formatting. The green simply indicates they're within the band of acceptable available hours or utilization. So that means that they're in the good there. Yellow is a flag that they need some more time allocated to them. So I think as I scroll down here, you'll see some more green. It's typically what we see in the near future. People are assigned or allocated and things are okay. And then as you move further out in the year, often there's a lot of discussion around, okay, we have some availability. How do we get people assigned out there? You can't simply just assign people to projects. They might have time off or other things that they need to do. So all of that kind of gets factored in here. And conversely, the opposite problem would be if someone is over-assigned, right? So in my example here, I have John Adams. He's an analyst. I can see that in June, we have him overbooked. So that's what I mean about the communication effect. You can apply hours to people, but if they can't really work those hours, then it doesn't make for a very good plan, because ultimately, if he's not available, that 10 hours is going to be missed. And maybe that could have gone to somebody else, or maybe that could have been pushed out into the future. So how do we adjust something like that? So let's say that perhaps for John Adams here, we want to make a quick adjustment. So what we'll do is we'll go in. I'm going to go find an example of our John Adams here. And we're going to scroll over here to, let's just check our report. So it looks like in June of 25, he's 10 hours overbooked. So what I think I'm going to do is find John. I'm going to shift his hours, let's say forward a month. Let's say some discussions happened, agreement, consensus occurred, and we were able to move and shift 10 of John's hours from June to July, something as simple as that. Right. So with a couple quick edits there, I click save. I go back to my report. I'm going to do a quick refresh here. We'll scroll down, and there's John Adams, and his hours are better now. So I got June, he's whole, and then July, we've moved some forward. So not only did we fix the problem that was going on in June, we got him some hours in July. And that's really the theme of this, right? When you're doing project planning, it's iterative type work. It's not like set it up once and everything's figured out. That'd be great if all our organizations could work that way, but often there's some back and forth that needs to happen. So here's just a micro example of how you could go about facilitating that. So let's say that you have gone through the effort of getting all your resource planning done. People are assigned to projects. Perhaps there's more hours that need to be worked out there. Another thing that this could indicate is maybe you need to hire more people because you have too much work, or conversely, there's not enough work and too many people. This can be very telling. But once this resource planning is sorted out, then what we're able to do are generate certain types of reports here, right? So here's a project reporting format where I can see my total projects at the top. Here's how many assigned hours I have out there. What's my fee revenue, my allocated time to those projects, the allocated costs, the margin percentages. So that's kind of a cool feature. We're capturing all of this information, and really the way we're doing it is via the plan here. So if I go into my John Adams example real quick, I'm just going to pop into some of the details that are calculating behind this. Once you've assigned the hours, really what this is going to do is apply a rate to this and immediately have that flow through. So if I scroll forward to my timeline, so I'm in my planning for my 2025 year, if he's got 50 hours assigned, that's going to generate $8,000 in revenue. What I did for an allocation example here is allocated 30% of his time. What we did with that was took his salary, applied it to the project, and then we got a margin there at the bottom. So with each of these rows, what we're really building into is not only our project revenue, which we want to know, but also perhaps the margin that we might want to associate behind that. And you could calculate that a variety of different ways. Just wanted to provide a quick example there. And then some additional reporting. Perhaps we want to look at things by project, or maybe a little bit higher level by practice. So I threw in some practice examples here: advisory or development or engineering or financial, whatever the case might be. You could have all of those listed out. And then you could even show a revenue report here. Here's it broken down by project or by practice or by service line. So really able to get a good idea of what's going on in the organization, the business, to control our metrics. And what presentation regarding financial information would be complete without showing a quick example of a dashboard, right? So if I'm having the management of the organization is looking into how things are going and where we're trending, this is a good, easy, high-level way to see that. Like, what's our proportion of projected revenue by practice, or where's our margin going? How's our forecasted utilization versus our target? Looks like we're running a little bit low. Why is that? You can dig into the numbers there. And if I go over to my charts and my graphs and I'm like looking at advisory, I'm saying, what's making that up? So being able to just instantly answer some of your questions, perhaps I wanted to know, what portion of our, positions are making up our advisory revenue, whatever the question might be. You do a couple simple clicks. Oh, it looks like most of that's coming from principals, analysts, project managers. Makes sense. So got some good information there. And then, like I indicated earlier, what we want to see is to have this all tie back to our overall financials as well. So perhaps, the project planning is one component of that, but if we have other types of maybe product revenue or other revenue types that need to be brought into this, you can have a variety of ways of reviewing and controlling and managing the organization. All right. So with that, Kristi, are the slides coming back?
I believe so.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
So I know we're getting close to the end here. So a couple quick slides just to reiterate some of the points that I had just discussed. So organizations need information access to quickly make decisions. Oftentimes you have a bunch of information, and oftentimes something like spreadsheets or disconnected systems. Here's how it feels. It doesn't feel very agile or nimble. There's a lot of tribal knowledge out there of people knowing certain things. Only certain people have access to certain systems. The process of managing the data is a massive distraction. And so what we're trying to do is automate things for higher value activities. So as you can see in my graph here, here's what's often common, right? You have data operations, a lot of tactical stuff happening, getting things organized, putting it together. Then we get our reports together. There's lots of iterative work there. We're passing files around. Usually days or weeks go by. And then at the end, we're able, once we've agreed on the information, to then do our insights and analysis. We're spending a very little amount of time in that current state. The desired state, you have that pyramid flipped upside down. We're spending less time managing the data operations and the reporting controls, and most of the time doing the higher level analysis so that we can really kind of steer and guide the organization. So for high performing organizations, they will have a plan. They all share these characteristics, right? They have a plan, they perform on that plan, they have people that do that performance, and they communicate. And that's really the key here. Communication is baked into how you handle data. So having a system and process that helps tie all those things together is really what often makes it work. So consider finding solutions when you're struggling in spreadsheets or spending hours pulling information together, or you're lacking those timely insights that you're looking for. And then I also want to leave you with this thought here, accelerating for business value. So information has a shelf life, right? And delivering information in the decision-making window adds to that business value. So oftentimes what we're seeing with clients is they are doing a lot of operational things during the month goes by, they have to put together updated forecasts or plans, and they could be days or weeks into the following period. And then what the question that they're able to answer is what happened, versus the more powerful question is what is happening. And here's a quick example of this empowering for rolling forecasts. Not only do we want to build a budget and be able to reforecast on that, but also a continuous budget and reforecast. So that top box there shows, building up the budget, the actuals come in, and the reforecasting cycle usually happens in an isolated annual year. But wouldn't it be nice to move on to a more rolling schedule to allow for continuous planning, continuous updates, rather than just being confined to, the current forecast. All right, another quick polling question here. How often do your managers see updated comparisons between business results and the plan? Are you continuously having that information available to you? Is this cadence on a weekly, monthly or quarterly process, or are you doing something other than that? So if you have a moment here to fill in the end results, we'll take just a moment to have everyone apply their answers, and then we'll drill into this. All right, I think we have a majority. So let's take a quick look at some of the results. All right, pretty good. So we have a lot of people operating here on mostly on a monthly basis. We have some people doing quarterly and weekly, which we do see, and then a few of you on a continuous planning system. So that's good as well. These cadences are really important to define and create expectations in the organization for where we're going to go in terms of setting up our plan, making adjustments, all the rest of it. All right. So just going to do a quick conclusion here. Benefits of project revenue planning: empowers rolling forecast process, creates a more efficient budgeting cycle, can often automate consolidation. It's easier to create an easier to manage management reporting tool, financial and operational metrics that allow management to get better insights and help create some decision-making propositions, what-if analysis, all the rest of it. All right. Well, I'm a little bit over time. I appreciate everybody joining today, and I will pass it back to you, Emily.
All right. Thank you, Kristi and Brian, for a great presentation today. If you had questions for our presenters, we'll be doing our best to follow up with you after the webcast, or you may reach out to them via their email on the screen here. And here is a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey, as your feedback is very important to us. Please also visit misaligned.com for future webcasts and other resources to help you elevate your performance upward. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time.